Hi there, this is John Wilkinson again from History Made Easier, with the first of 3 presentations that will point the finger of blame for World War I on Germany. This first presentation taking an overview. But let me say right up front that blame carries a higher benchmark than responsibility. It really has to be justified. What helps me deal with this is to think of blame as resulting from deliberate actions or policies to bring about the war, whereas responsibility results from actions that didn't, yet nevertheless contributed to the war. I hope that makes sense and so helps you. An important point that you should be clear about is that though Germany had an elected Reichstag, democratic control had been largely bypassed, first by Chancellor Bismarck and then by Kaiser Wilhelm II. When Bismarck was Chancellor, Germany did build a complicated and contradictory, we could add deceitful, web of alliances involving Austria-Hungary, Russia and Italy. And this did set off France building an alliance with Russia. Russia was the one being most deceived by Bismarck's manoeuvrings. And France built an entente with Britain. And when Kaiser Wilhelm II forced Bismarck's resignation, Germany and Europe lost the man who had been steering German foreign policy through this complicated web. And the Kaiser took over control of things himself, and he was decidedly a loose cannon. But if ultimate power was held by the Kaiser, influence was held by a triumvirate. Count Bernhard von Bülow, who was foreign minister from 1897 and chancellor, though remaining mostly interested in foreign affairs, from 1900 to 1909. Friedrich von Holstein, senior advisor to the Foreign Office since 1878, and very much a power behind the scenes. And Alfred von Tirpitz, who became Secretary to the Navy in 1897. And they were all in the business of making Germany a great power, a power to be respected, if not feared. So we come to Weltpolitik or world policy, the Kaiser's personal policy, though enthusiastically taken up by the others, incorporating 3 interrelated factors: empire in Africa, Middle Africa, Germany's place in the sun, economic dominance in Central Europe that could lead to territorial gains, but not necessarily so, Middle Europa, and a strong, powerful navy. It was to be the projection of Germany as a major economic, military and political power onto the wider world. Germany would rise as Britain declined. There was a strong sense of Anglophobia in the project, from the Kaiser down to the population at large. Whilst for liberals it meant a projection of German culture and moral leadership that would bring Germany the respect it deserved. Bülow said in a speech in the Reichstag in 1897, "We don't want to put anyone else in the shade, but we too demand a place in the sun." However, in a speech made in 1899, the Kaiser remarked on how old empires had always passed away, as new ones were formed. The policy also manifested itself in the leagues. The Colonial Society, the Navy League and the Pan-German League, that lobbied German governments for a German empire to rival that of Britain's. Now, though today we would question the moral justification for empire, At the end of the 19th century, Germany was only setting out to get what Britain, France and others already had, its place in the sun. So the thing about Weltpolitik to think about is not so much the policy itself, but first how Germany set about achieving its aims. Was this provocative or not? And secondly, how did the other powers react? Was their reaction justifiable or not? Whatever your conclusions to those questions are, a critically important result of Weltpolitik, which didn't actually achieve much for Germany, was that it had left Germany encircled by hostile powers. Hence the increasing importance to Germany of the Schlieffen Plan, which went through a number of drafts in the 1890s, another in 1905 and another in 1911. Now you will know the plan, so I'll simply emphasise that it was France and Russia that Germany expected to be fighting, and so to avoid a war on two fronts, highly likely to be winnable, highly unlikely to be winnable, as two armies fighting in different directions would have to be manned and supplied, France would have to be defeated very quickly. And that meant invading Belgium to get to France quickly, which increased the risk of British involvement. And Germany knew that. But the thinking was that Germany had no alternative option. And to make it work, in 1912, the Reichstag agreed to increase the German army again, by more than 30%, its biggest peacetime increase, with plans to increase it further in 1914. Was Germany planning for war, or was it simply preparing for a potential war? So that's an overview of German blame. But let's take a brief look at potential exam questions before I finish. Something we could do a lot of in tutorials if you're interested. First, a paper 2 question. Very general in nature, yet one for which this presentation can still be useful. What were the most frequent causes of 20th century wars? Now, in this general question, I would use specific evidence from at least 3 wars. Well, aggressive foreign policies, whether real or perceived, has been a frequent cause of war, and you can use the example of Weltpolitik. And I will look specifically at Weltpolitik in another presentation. But here's another IB question, this time from paper 3. German foreign policy did not lead to the outbreak of the First World War. Discuss. Now, to agree with this statement, I would focus on the Balkans as the key factor, perhaps linking the alliance system to help explain why a local matter became a world war. But to disagree with the statement, I would argue that whether one focuses on the way Germany provoked tension with its foreign policy, or else it was the overreaction of other powers, German foreign policy was still an important factor. So there you go. I do thank you for listening, and I do wish you the best of luck with your studies. If you want to think about tutorials, get your parents to contact me at historymadeeasier@gmail.com, and we'll see if we can sort something out. But for now, cheers.